Hi, it's Gadget UK here again, back with another C64. So just like the previous video, this board came from Electronash, so a huge thanks to Ash for sending this. It's missing a SID. Now don't always assume the position up there is for a SID, because that's the same pin count as the PLA here. And I think one of the earlier, it might be a later revision, no, it's an earlier revision had these flipped around the wrong way. So the PLA on that board sits up here and the SID sits down here. So yeah, do always pay attention to the board. You can see here it's 250425. I think that's it's a different revision to that last one, isn't it? And the other difference here straight away, 6569R5. So the 6569 is obviously the PAL version of the VIC-II. I think it was 6567 for the NTSC flavour of those chips. There are a number of different revisions of these, and I've got some of them now. So you got the R1, there's an R3, there was an R4 which was pretty rare, and then the R5, and I think there may be an R8. I've heard rumours there's an R8. And then there's this VIC chip here, which features on the C64C board. This is actually a C64E, actually, this board, but you can see it's an 8565, is it? R2. So again, I think there's a few different revisions of those, and I think there will be an NTSC version as well as the PAL. They may have made it switchable by the time they got to this, I'm not sure, I don't think so though. And of course that runs on 5 volts, that's a correction to all my previous C64 videos. When I said, you know, the VIC and the SID both use 9 volts, the SID on this one does use 9, but the VIC uses nothing but 5. So that's the difference, and you can fit that on one of the long boards. And we talked about the whole long board, short board in the previous video, but the long board is what you typically get in a bread bin. But you could find in the environment there C64Cs that had long boards in. Commodore did that when they swapped over from the long board to the short board. So you need to look in there and see, does it have a short board like this one, or does it have the wide board here, the long board? And the way you do the mod to fit the 5 volt VIC in here is you find where the 12 volts goes through. It goes through an inductor, it might be there, but there's an inductor somewhere. Check to the VDD pin and you remove it, and then just put a wire from the, check there's no 12 volts on there actually, remove the chip, measure the voltage, make sure you haven't got any voltage, and then join a wire from the VDD pin to the 5 volt VCC on this, and that should work. This is you know, one of the ones that's got 12 volts for the VIC and 12 volts for the SID, which is why these go so darn hot. Actually, they run really hot. Certainly the R1s, as you'll see in another video. So as you can see, all these chips here are socketed. It's missing the SID, as I say. There's no other signs of work or anything on this board. I don't think anyone's tinkered with it, but it has got these red dots, which suggest that it has been tested at some point in the past. Anyway, let's connect the power and switch it on. If it had a SID in there, I'd remove it. Technically, I could remove the VIC, but you know what? I know a power supply is good here, so let's just switch it on and see what we get. Oh joy, it's another black screen, isn't it? They're nearly always black screens recently, the ones I've picked up. Switch it off and on a few times. Oh, white screen. I'm thinking PLA again, actually. This is why it's worth switching off and on, off and on, off and on. No, white screen again, a few dozen times. Yeah, I am thinking PLA. Oh, we saw red there as well, and we saw some garbage, so let's do exactly what we did in the previous video. I'm not measuring voltages here, I'm not measuring clocks. I know I've got a clock. How do I know I've got a clock? Well, I'm seeing stuff on the screen, and I'm seeing some different stuff with the colours and things, and the PLA is nearly always the problem, so let's take that out. And we'll get this on. I'm going to just shove this straight in because I've got every confidence that that is certainly part of the problem. I'll switch it on. Now we are getting a black screen still. Right, so this is a minute or two later. I've just tested that PLA in another board and it gives a black screen. So the PLA is faulty, but we still have a black screen. So if you watch the previous video, you'll know. Well, other than checking voltages and clocks, and I'm just going to skirt over that here. I'm going to use the dead test card, because I'm thinking RAM again actually. I hope it's not, because it's going to be just like that last one, isn't it? So let's plug that in, switch that on, and can you believe it, we're getting the same number of flashes we had in the previous video. One flash, that's crazy. I it's so frequent for me that I know exactly which chip it is, because it's the same chip we did on the previous board. It's a different revision board. What are the odds of that? That's just ridiculous. So far, this is looking just like the last video. We've swapped the PLA, and now we've got the same RAM fault. So, right, I'm going to go target that chip, and we'll replace that chip. And if you saw the previous video, you know that if you look up the table for the number of flashes, that just gives one flash, you know, just a single flash. You'd get like flash, 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 for say 3, and then there'd be a pause, flash, 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 flash. That would be 3, and that would be another chip. But 1 is the uppermost bit, which is that one there. Now these aren't MT, that one's Texas Instruments by the looks of things. There's a few different makes here. We've got one with the F on it there. Is that Fujitsu or someone? It might not be. There's a different manufacturer with those, but they've put random ones on this. It's like got Motorola, Hitachi, Motorola, the Texas Instruments one, which I'm going to swap now, Hitachi, the one with the F symbol. So yeah, a whole bunch of different RAM on there. And if we have a look at, yeah, you can see that has been replaced at some point in the past, as has that one. You know what? I think all that RAM may have been swapped in the past, and someone's just put random stuff on there by the looks of things. Anyway, let's just whiz over to the mat and get that off there. Right, so a resistor pack is there. It's this one here. I'm just going to get some solder on there to start with. Makes it easier to identify, but also helps when you've got a little bit of fresh solder containing flux. I think there's a pin there, isn't there? Part of me hopes that this isn't the fault, actually. Otherwise this is just going to be a clone of the last video. Yeah, I'm going to leave that pin till last. It's ground, I think. Wow, they're not desoldering very well. That's better. So the interesting thing is, why has someone not socketed this when they replaced this previously? It really annoys me. There we go, no damage. So we've got the chip off. Let's get a socket on there. We'll clean up first. So I still have a feel there's any solder. There isn't. It's always worth doing that, because sometimes, certainly in the ground and VCC, you get little notches of solder stuck up. But this is looking really straightforward. Right, I'll just do my usual touch them, literally. It just helps the socket go on. I'm not really putting any force here, I'm literally just trying to free any solder on the top. Might need to unblock them further yet. Where's my socket gone now? Right, so pin 1 towards the top. Yeah, there we go. Just making sure the pins of the socket have not been pushed up, and they haven't, so I can just flip it over and solder that on. If this fixes it, this will make this like a 5-minute repair. So wrist strap on, don't take any chances as I mentioned on the previous video. Electrostatic discharges will kill some lungs. So we've got the new chip on, just connects up the video and power, and switch it on. And we've got a black screen again. Right, let me stick the dead test cart in and see what happens this time. So you do get an extended black screen with the dead test for the first 10 seconds or so, and then assume the backbone. Oh, it's working, look. So we must have a kernel fault or something. So yeah, at least it's a little bit more interesting than the last one. So I think, I'm not sure whether this tests the kernel actually. It might not do this version. Let's just see what it reports. So as you can see, it's in screen RAM at the moment. I'm not impressed with the video quality on this. You know, I see like lines down here. RAM test okay, sound test, obviously we've not got a SID fitted. Ah, it just goes right around again, it doesn't test the ROM, does it? Yeah, so this is where you need additional diagnostics cartridges. We know the backbone of the system's alright, everything tests out here okay, so it has to be the kernel. I mean, it could be basic maybe, I don't know. So I think on that basis I will test with a diagnostics cart. Now I'm just thinking, I've got this, but this isn't going to work without the kernel to program it to select the cartridge, put the cartridge on here. So I'm going to have to swap over to another board, I think, in order to get the diagnostics on here. Right, so Kung Fu Flash is on another board here. If I choose that, there we go. So this is on a working board, so I can now power that off. Bring this board back into shot, strap on, so we can get that in, which has now got the diagnostics cartridge on it. Connects up video, connects up power. Hopefully this will work. Switch it on, and that's not working either. So, oh, this is really confusing. I'm wondering if that diagnostics cartridge needs the kernel. You may have spotted that. I can see the comments now. Is that in? Doesn't feel very straight, that. Let's just pull it out again. So I'm going to need to get another one of these PLAs now, because I'm short by one. I'll switch it on. So I'll try it again. Hopefully we'll get the diagnostics now. Still no diagnostics? That's crazy. What is going on? Press the reset button maybe. Switch it on. Obviously that takes 10 seconds or so, if it's working. Yeah. That's really weird. So the next thing to consider here is the kernel actually. So let's just take the kernel out. It's handy it's socketed here. There we go. Just put that out of the way. And I've got another one from another board here that I know is good. Let's just get that kernel in and try that. Switch it on. Ah, hang on a minute. Well, we're making progress. So it must have a bad kernel. I think that's the character ROM actually. It's the only thing it can be, because we saw with the dead test all of the screen ran past, the colour ran past, everything there. We know it's not the PLA. So when the C64 wants to display text, it takes it from the character ROM. Hang on a minute, that's got a 7 on it, isn't? That's a 7. That's a kernel. That's a kernel. It's got a kernel in the colour ROM position, I think. Yeah, it's a Rev 2 one, but that's a kernel. That would explain it. What's the one we took out then? Yeah, and the one we took out, that's the character ROM. Someone's mixed these up. So, well, we don't know whether these are going to work or not now, do we? Because well, they should do, because the pinout's the same. It's not like they were in flipped. So let's try that. Ah, there we go. It works. So I'll power it off and I'll try it with its own kernel. I don't honestly know how someone's managed to do that. You'd have to have all the chips out at the same time to get those mixed up. Right, its original kernel is back in. Yep, there we go. So whoever worked on this last mixed those two chips up. Oh well, it gave me something interesting, I guess, because it has been pretty much identical to the previous repair, hasn't it? So anyway, now that's working, let's just switch that off, take the Kung Fu flash out, and let's just try it, see what happens at basic. Ah, hang on a minute, we've got another fault. There's no cursor. Let's just power cycle it again. Yeah, there's no cursor, that's the CIA, isn't it? Now, if you saw the previous video, there was no CIA here. I took this from one of the other boards, so it just so happens I found a bad CIA here. I could try with this extractor. I'm not sure if it's going to grip or not. Yeah, it is. There we go. So let's get that CIA out of the way. Let's find another CIA now. So wrist strap on again. I've got a CIA here. It's an A, 6526A-1. Those I think were 2 megahertz, weren't they? The 6486526 is 1 megahertz. The 6526A is 2 megahertz, and you can get a 6526B. Did that go in right? I think so. Pin 1 at the top. Let's see if that makes any difference. Switch it on. Yep, we've got the cursor back, and we've got the full amount of RAM there. We know the RAM's alright because obviously the dead test tested that. So there we go, that's another one fixed, about 10 minutes in total. But anyway, yeah, so this board is now up and running again. I need to get one of those. We need to get a nano swinsid or something for it. That needs heat sink in there, that's red hot, that VIC. Yeah, nothing else. It's getting hot. Oh, thanks a lot, Yoshi. So whilst we're here, the other thing I think I'll show you is, let's just remove the character ROM. I'll show you what happens if we haven't got a character ROM in. It's good this one's completely socketed up like this. It just gives me a few things that I can show you to add a bit of content. Now you'll get the same fault here when you've got a faulty character ROM. I've seen these before with this exact fault, like that, and get garbled text. The other thing, obviously, because that ROM is used for the actual characters, yeah, you could have parts of characters wrong, you know, missing pixels. You could have lines through the pixels. You might have just certain letters that are affected or missing, etc. So that's what happens with the character ROM. And your basic ROM is here. Now you may think these things never fail. They do. And back in the day, I fixed 4 or 5 which had basic ROM problems and character ROM problems. Not on the same machine, different, you know, I'd get one machine in it, I'd have basic, needed to swap it out, another one, character ROM. But it's been quite a while since I've seen either of those as a fault. So without basic, there you go. You get the same sort of problem there, I think, when the other CIA is missing. I can test that as well, actually, because that's socketed on here. All the main chips are socketed on this one, which is good. Yeah, so sometimes there's mileage in doing tests like this. If you're not familiar with the machine, you get one, you've got a working one and it's all socketed. Take advantage of the situation because you'll learn some stuff. But I think if we remove this one, maybe that will do the same thing we had here. I can't quite remember actually. I know you're obviously going to lose things like serial and keyboard. Maybe I think the keyboard might go to that one. I'm not sure. I'm going to need to get my screwdriver under that. That will not get that off. It's going to be single wipe sockets again, isn't it? That's probably what it is. Yeah, that's really stiff in there. That will be single wipe. There we go. Just carefully lift it out. I put it on there. Switch it on. Ah, I'm surprised actually. Yeah, my mistake. Let me just remove the other CIA. Maybe that's the one that gives us a blue background with a thing. It might not just be the cursor. Maybe if it's missing completely, you'll have what I'm expecting. Let's just see. No, actually, it is just the cursor. So yeah, that's a correction to all my previous videos where I said if one of them's missing, you'll have just a blue background. That's what happens when the basic ROM is faulty or missing. Anyway, power it back on again now. Let's see what happens. There we go, up and running. So switch it off. This is going to have a nano swinsid fitted in there ultimately, so it doesn't matter about round pins into the holes there. We're not too worried about widening those. Let's get the Kung Fu flash in and let's try a few games out on it. But this one appears to be a success. So it's still set to the diagnostics there, so press the menu button. Need to plug in a joystick. Let's try a lens here. I think this is a beta or something. It was part of the downloads you got when you bought it. So we'll just clean up here now. I might resolder one or two of these in it, I don't know. Let's see what they look like when they're cleaned. Yeah, I can't really leave it like that. I don't know if you can see, there's just like the odd point around here where there's, I don't know, there's like a gap. It's like the solder's sunk right down, look at that there. And it just seems to be around the RAM, one or two of these ones here as well. Yeah, the one, that is not the RAM, is it? Those are the 257s actually, the Muxas. But yeah, there's a few points around here, so I'm just going to resolder and I'll clean that off as well. That's not good there, is it? So I haven't got round testing the keyboard properly. Yeah, that won't help. There's a few of these bent. Look, there's one there that's bent. Yeah, that's looking a bit straighter now, so we'll just go down the profile that way. And that second one is still pointing to the right a little bit. So it's had its clean up. I've got a replacement CA here now. This is a permanent one because I borrowed one from another board just to test. So this was thanks to Sparks UK. Did me a really good deal on that actually. That was really kind of him. The legs are a bit short on it, but it's a single web socket, and you know what, they fit really well into those. But as I mentioned in previous videos, these single web sockets, you want to replace them. And if you've replaced one MT RAM, maybe replace the others, but there are no MT RAM on here. The other ones are alright actually. Sometimes these will be Moss branded, that one over there I think, and maybe one or two of these. Oh, those are, you can see that, got the Moss symbol. So yeah, those are a common source of failure on these as well. Many of the ones with the Moss on, but these will fail even if they're not Moss. You know, I've sort of shown that in previous videos I think. So before I can sell this, obviously I'm waiting for a PLA, and I'm waiting for a Nano Swinsid. And just as I said that, the Nano Swinsid arrived. The same thing can happen with a PLA. I'm waiting for a PLA. Come on, door. Someone ring the door. No, that didn't work. So anyway, let's just get the SID in. Yeah, these are really nice. They manufactured these by a chap in the UK actually. He does a really good job, and I like the way he's revised the boards of the stuff on the underside, because it means you can press here and you've not got any problems. You do have to be careful when you're levering out. Mind you, there's nothing on the edges there, so yeah, that's just a nice evolution of the original board layout. But obviously, Nano Swinsid, they're not perfect. They're not perfect at all. But I would say about 95% of the way there. You just miss the oscillator 3 and envelope 3 register read support, and obviously it's not got support for pot X and pot Y, so a mouse wouldn't work, or paddles. And as you can see, I marked it up to say it was fixed in 2022. So this is one of the original, purple ceramic gold top R1s, revision 1. So this is what would have gone on a lot of the silver label boards and stuff, I would assume. Now I've also got an R3 and I've got an R5. So I'm not sure there were very many bugs fixed between the different revisions, but the one change that does stand out, I've found this detailed in a few different places, is the luminance. This original R1 had, I think it was 5 luminance bits, so you've got your 16 colours there, and obviously having 5 luminance levels, luminance is your brightness level. If you've only got 5 levels of that, that's going to dictate out of those 16 colours how those colours look. It affects the palette effectively. So the R1 here having 5 luminance bits is going to be different to the later revisions. Now I think from the R3 onwards, that's where we get an additional 4 luminance bits. There's 9 luminance levels in total, which means those 16 colours will all have slightly changed, just a little bit. Now I'm not sure if it's better, if the colours are better spread out, in terms of their levels to make them sort of equal sort of intensity in terms of the luminance, or well, obviously you've only got 9 luminance bits, you've got 16 colours. It's a bit of the maths doesn't quite fit to make everything totally balanced that way. But of course, the thing we're not taking into account is the chroma. The chroma is the thing that obviously, along with the luminance, is what gives the colour its colour. It dictates how it looks. So I thought it'd just be interesting to just have a look at the differences here. So we'll start with this R1. I'll do some direct captures as well, I think, and we'll compare to the R3 and the R5. So even though this started off as kind of like looking just like the last video, you know, we had a PLA issue and then we had RAM, and not just any RAM, the same RAM as in the last video. Yeah, it seemed like it was going to be a pretty plain repair, but then we had the problem with it. We still wouldn't boot. The character ROM was in the kernel socket. That's not in properly, is it? And the kernel was in the character ROM socket. And then we had a problem with the CAA as well. And it was interesting just me showing you, I guess, some things there, correcting some stuff. As I say, a number of C64 videos, I've kept saying, oh, if you've got one of these missing, it'll do one thing. If you've got one of them missing, it'll do the other. That whole, you know, blue screen with the, you know, the purple background or whatever, that doesn't happen with these. That happens when you've got a problem with BASIC, actually. The BASIC ROM is it's not working. But of course, I have also seen examples where BASIC can be, you know, a few bits play up on it and stuff, or a few locations within there, and that can give you all sorts of weird random things, like it starts to boot and then it doesn't, or you get half the basic text, you know, the message coming up and sort of some characters missing. I've had all sorts of weird things like that that could throw you off and make me think you've got a character on problems. So yeah, there's lots of overlap on symptoms and behaviour. And actually, thinking about it, one of these CAAs, I forget which, it actually drives or controls the upper two address bits for the video side of things. The VIC has 14 address lines, so 2 of those address lines are controlled via one of the ports on one of the CAAs there. So if there is a problem with the CAA, you can get video problems. So yeah, maybe that might be what I was thinking with that a blue screen with a sort of purple background. That's probably what I'm thinking. I may have seen that in the past where you get a problem with that port on that CAA, but the rest of that CAA is okay. You can get problems like that. It's probably more likely to mess up the actual video display in general, I would think, if those 2 address bits were not working from the CAA. I'll post a link up there if you didn't see it. We covered a modern replacement for that from Hey Bert. And I have got a crusty video on that as well. I'll be doing a video shortly on the ARM SID and on the back SID, as well as the FPGA SID, this SID, and the Swin SID Ultimate. There'll be like a, I don't know, a fight out video where they're all compared against each other. And I guess it was interesting to look at the subtle differences between an R1 and an R5. The R3, it seems to be pretty much similar to this R5, actually. It maybe gives a slightly lower quality display compared to this, but that's just on the board it's on. And that's an important point to note, that when you swap in these VIC chips, there's a page in the schematics. Let me just see if I can find it. Yes, you can see it here. It's referring to the 6567. I mind you've got the 6569 down there, I think. And it suggests to change C86 and R191 as that. Can't really read that very well. But you can see there's some differences in terms of the capacitance and the resistor there, depending on which VIC you use. So of course that's going to have an effect that if you stuck an R1 SID on here, as I did when I was testing, it may or may not be what you're expecting in terms of the video. It could be slightly better or slightly worse if those components change size, you know, and I'm not sure that this board revision is the same one those schematics relating to there, actually. But so yeah, just bear that in mind, that if your board has got a VIC of a certain type, you may get the best out of it by swapping it for the same type of VIC. I think the difference would be so subtle you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference, to be honest. And I think summarising the differences you saw there, they're very subtle. Anyway, you've got gradients, you know, so you've got like one colour toggled with another colour on every other scan line. It stands out a little bit. There are a few points where I highlighted that, so that's where you notice the difference most of the time. But obviously it's a palette difference, you know, in general it's a palette difference, just subtle differences there. So would you notice in anger when you're playing games and things? Probably not. I'll be honest, you got lots of different boards here with the different revisions of VICs, including the R1, and I never really noticed a difference. I would say the R1 for me I have more sentiment for, because that's the chip I saw quite a lot when I was working on these boards initially, and I think that's the chip that went in the silver label boards. And I just quite like the way the early VIC displays, to be honest. It's only got those 5 luminance bits, is it? I don't know, it just kind of, to me, I quite like it actually. Anyway, I do hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel, please see the links down below. Just $1 a month makes a huge difference. Thank you very much to all the people that subscribe, and all the people that comment, and all the Patreons, and I'll catch you in the next video.